moving on here. Going to be going around the NBA. A lot of stuff happening around the NBA. A lot of notes to have around the NBA, and just looking at it from the standpoint of all the things happening. A lot of movement in the Western Conference. A lot of these younger teams are now moving up. Seeing that how that's happening. Looking at how in the Eastern Conference there's a battle now, a gridlock between fourth and fifth place. You got the Knicks at fourth, Miami, Magic, Clippers, and the Cleveland Cavaliers, who have just been feisty, trying to figure it out, battling through all those injuries with Evan Mobley and Darius Garland. Those guys are both out for them, trying to figure it out, trying to figure out if they're going to trade Donovan Mitchell, all that stuff for Cleveland. But I wanted to talk about the Indiana Pacers, who are 20-15, obviously tied for fifth in the Eastern Conference there. But looking at their standpoint of what it was after that in-season tournament run, beating Milwaukee, beating Boston, and just getting to the finals and having that feel-good story and how much that meant for the Indiana Pacers, who have been just in lottery purgatory since Victor Oladipo got hurt, Paul George run there in the mid tens there and the 2000s there. So looking at it from that standpoint of what Indiana has been able to bring to the table, they started off shaky after the in-season tournament, started off 2-6, and it was like, are they kind of like the Lakers having this in-season tournament hangover? They were able to fight out of that, got 6 straight before they lost to the Boston Celtics tonight. So just looking at the impressive play of Tyrese Halliburton, giving him a shout out, especially with how they're just playing right now and how infectious his play is in terms of play style. Believing the Jordan being the third player in NBA history to have a 2020 game, 20 points, 20 assists, and no turnovers, joining John Stockton and Magic Johnson. So to look at it from that standpoint of what he does on the game, controlling the possessions of the game, despite how fast they play and how many possessions they create, he doesn't put them in a bad position. So looking at that, that's just hype for the Indiana Pacers. And hopefully they're able to continue, just not against us, just not against the Boston Celtics. They did defeat us in the in-season tournament and turned around, and they got their ass kicked tonight by Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So tough shit. Tough shit on that, man. But let's go to next, the Charlotte Hornets. I think it's time to officially tank. And yes, they're one of the worst teams in the NBA already. I think they only have 8-25 on the season, but they need to go further. And I felt like they should have done this last year, especially with LaMelo Ball hurt. And take from Wemby. Yes, they did get the second or third pick in the NBA draft, but they got to go all in. It can't hurt to have more ping pong balls down there in the lottery. So trade Cody Martin, trade Gordon Hayward, trade Terry Rozier, and start building around Brandon Miller, Mark Williams, and LaMelo Ball, who has been their franchise player, who they just signed to an extension in the offseason. So stop wasting time and finally tank. Go all in. Like, this is the perfect time. Like, the community still watches the Hornets and stuff like that. You guys have an infectious couple of players there with LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and Mark Williams. You have those 3 guys at 3 different positions. You also have Miles Bridges, PJ Washington. You guys have a nice young core. Continue to add through that. I don't know if they're going to trade the pick or whatever the case may be, but try to get as many ping pong balls as you can. Try to be like the San Antonio Spurs. Try to be like the Detroit Pistons. Like, I understand people saying, hey, losing is bad for the game, but this is what these teams need to do in order to compete long term. Find these guys like a LaMelo Ball. Find these guys like a Brandon Miller. Find these guys like a Mark Williams. And continue to build their team. That's the only way they're going to be getting it done. OKC has done that, but they traded and lucked up and got SGA. So looking at it from that standpoint, continue the tanking. Continue the tanking. Figure out a way to continually tank. Start this rebuild correctly. Stop trying to hang on and make the in-season tournament and all the stuff like they've been trying to do. And just tank. Just tank. That's all you need to do. Just tank. That's all you need to do. Charlotte, just tank, please. But moving on to the Denver Nuggets, the stealth champions, continuing to build on the season, and just after that big win against Golden State, where he hit Nikola Jokic hit the game winner. Hit the game winner. Looking at it from the standpoint of, and they just dropped the game to the Magic after that. But looking at where they are in the Western Conference, no one's really talking about them. And I understand it to a certain degree where you're looking at the Denver Nuggets and saying, hey, they're defending champions. They're going to be there in the end. They're going to be there in the top seed in the Western Conference, but I feel like no one's talking about them. Nikola Jokic obviously having an MVP season, 26.1 points per game, 11.9 rebounds, and 9.1 assists. He's just a dynamo hitting a game winner at the half-court mark against the Warriors, battling from 18 down. So they're trying to get all those wins and trying to continue to build. And everyone's looking good. Jamal Murray's coming back. He was out for a month. The Nuggets have survived that. Jamal Murray's coming in, providing a boost offensively. Michael Porter Jr. shooting the ball well and playing well for them. Aaron Gordon coming back from that dog incidents where he got bit in his face and stuff in his hand and stuff like that, and played really well against Golden State Warriors. But no one's talking about the Denver Nuggets. No one's talking about them, despite and it's the same thing as last year and the past couple of years, where people have taken their growth for granted, and people are obviously looking at Minnesota, who's playing well, number one defense in the league, playing really well behind Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, and Karl Anthony Towns. OKC, people are talking about them. People are talking about the Kings and what they're doing. People are talking about the Clippers, who I'll talk about in a second, and their ascent. People are still memorized by the struggles of the Phoenix Suns, the Golden State Warriors, and the Los Angeles Lakers, but no one's talking about the Denver Nuggets. Go ahead and mess up again. Go ahead and mess up again, because they can look at any team in the Western Conference and beat them confidently. They can look at every team in the Western Conference and say, hey, we can beat you guys. We got one of the best players, if not the top 3, top 2 best player on the planet. We got the most dynamic guard, one of the most dynamic scoring guards in the league. And we have size and guys that we're continuing to bring along, like a Peyton Watson and Christian Braun. And Reggie Jackson has even had a resurgence for this team. Just keep messing around, NBA, and keep not talking about the Denver Nuggets. Keep ignoring the Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference, and they'll make you pay. That's all I'm saying about them. Moving on to the Los Angeles Clippers. And I have been hesitant to give the Los Angeles Clippers credit so far in the season, because they started out, I believe, 0-5 with James Harden when they made the trade, and have been game busters ever since. But I have been looking at, first of all, they're 14-2 since the start of December. So kudos for them to handling business and stuff like that. But their schedule has been weak. They have the 7th weakest schedule in the NBA. It was 4th. I believe early last week, it was 4th weakest schedule in the league. And everyone's trying to say, hey, see James Harden, all this stuff. And we're only going to judge James Harden. We're only going to look at James Harden in the postseason. In the postseason. That's the only way we can judge him, is by the postseason, because everything that he's done in regular season, we know he's going to play well in the regular season. He's been able to put up a lot of stats, been able to do that. And yes, he is making stuff easier for the Los Angeles Clippers. So we can't ignore that. We can't ignore what he's been able to do with the Clippers during his time there, turning it around, not looking like a clusterfuck as they did earlier in the season. And I think people are overlooking Kawhi Leonard, who has been playing fantastic in these stretch of games and has really been only missed 30 games. He only missed a couple games on the season. Has only missed a couple games on the season. They had played 34. He's only missed 4 games on the season. So to get that type of productivity from Kawhi Leonard, who has been on a tear this season, scoring the basketball. Hold on one second. Scoring 29.3% points in December, 6 rebounds and 4 assists, and has played 9 games, has played 30 games on the season. So respect to those guys, and those guys are figuring out a way to play around James Harden and play with James Harden. Russell Westbrook obviously moving to the bench, and Ty Lue as coach. There are bright spots for the Clippers here. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer on the schedule and stuff like that, but what we're looking at, especially, we already know Kawhi Leonard can get on the roll. We know what Paul George can do. He got to the Western Conference Finals a couple of years ago, potentially getting that monkey off his back. Russell Westbrook being selfless and moving to the bench. It's all about what James Harden can do in the postseason. And maybe he lucked up and had, Now he has two other guys that he can lean the blame on if things go wrong again. That's how I'm looking at it so early. But again, you just got to look at what they do in the postseason. So what they're doing right now is just building chemistry, continuity. That's what they're supposed to be doing, and they're handling business. So kudos to them for being 14-2 since December. Kudos to them. But I still need more to be seen. And whatever they do in the regular season, Kawhi Leonard being healthy, that's important. Paul George being healthy, that's important. What are they going to do in the postseason? And we've been waiting. And I've been saying the Battle of LA needed to happen a couple of years ago, and it hasn't happened. So at what point are we going to get the real Clippers and get them to show up and get them to play? At some point, we got to wait. We got to see what they're going to do. That's a long way to get to April. So the Clippers right now, we keep an eye on them, but we'll wait until playoff time. And moving on to my last piece here, Giannis Antetokounmpo and Victor Wembanyama is must-see TV. These guys had a duel on Thursday night, the first game of the night. After the first game of the night, before Joker's big game winner against the Golden State Warriors, looking at Giannis versus Wembanyama, these guys mirror each other a lot in terms of size and being foreigners and stuff like that, France, Greek, all that other stuff like that. But looking at it from the standpoint of how Giannis was in the game when he came in the game, just a raw player at that point in time, no, not really much skill, kind of like just athletic, using his athleticism, and how he's grown, still using that athleticism, but now using strength along to go with that. And looking versus Victor Wembanyama, who's so much more polished as a player coming into the league, but still has that defensive prowess on that side. And it's just like, to see how these guys marry each other a little bit and just how they came into the game, this was a duel that we want to see all the time, man. And just kudos to, and just, again, Giannis being so raw and as a just unknown as a player, to see Victor Wembanyama, who's polished offensive game, can block shots and stuff like that. So to see this matchup actually happening, and I said to people, it's going to be interesting to see how that weight plays a role when people keep saying beefing up and stuff like that in the NBA and people need to put on weight, et cetera, et cetera. And the first thing I was saying when Chet Holmgren, when Victor Wembanyama were getting drafted, and I'm like, that doesn't matter. We just got to see how they play against Giannis. And to see Victor Wembanyama battle Giannis, yes, Giannis had 44 points, 14 rebounds, and 7 assists. But that late play in the game, I believe it was under a minute to go, and Giannis went to the basket and tried to dunk it, and Victor Wembanyama stuffed him. And Giannis tried to bully him, used his elbow, and tried to go up over him, and Victor Wembanyama blocked him. So I think that's all we need to see how Victor Wembanyama is going to do in the NBA and just stay healthy, knock on wood. But just to see how he's going to do in the NBA, he had 27 points, 9 rebounds, but 5 blocks on the game. This guy's a rim protector. He gets after it. He chases guys down. His game is going to get scary. And I don't know. San Antonio's not trying to win. They're trying to throw away the season. Okay, whatever the case may be. Maybe they're trying to get Alex Shaw out of Perth, out of Australia, and match these guys together if they can. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. But looking at it from that standpoint, it's just like Victor Wembanyama and Giannis, 2 specimens of this nature, 2 guys that can really give it on both ends. I love it. It was an awesome game, even though Milwaukee won 125-121. But it was just awesome to see these 2 guys go at it. And, I hope there's more of it. I hope we get Chet versus Wemby again. They're in the same division, same conference. So hopefully we get to see that more and more again. So NBA just having a lot of things happen. The Boston Celtics are the best team in the league right now. The Clippers are 14-2, as I talked about. We're going to see what happens with Atlanta. Philly and Joel Embiid having an MVP season. Tyrese Maxey playing really well for them. The New York Knicks adding OG Anunoby, who I talked about last week. I believe they're 4-0 with him in the lineup. So that's an improvement for the New York Knicks and kind of separates themselves into that mid-tier, but I just think they're in the same spot. Looking at it from that standpoint, Oklahoma City beat the Celtics. I was highly upset about that, even though the Celtics battled back in that game. But it was a good game. It was an awesome game, one of the better games on the season. OKC just continue to take strides. SGA is a problem. J-Dub, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, those guys are a problem in down there in Oklahoma City. Trying to figure out what's happening with the Suns. Bradley Beal comes back and then he's in and out. Kevin Durant has missed the past couple of games. So Devin Booker's been the one holding it together down there so far. Houston just beat Milwaukee tonight. They're 18-16 on the season. Who would have thought the Houston Rockets would be above 500, let alone beating above 500 teams? They're playing really well. 5-5 in the last 10, but trying to figure it out on the road. They're finally they are 3-10. I believe at one point they didn't have a road win. So finally getting a couple road wins there and here. Good for the Houston Rockets. The Utah Jazz are finally somehow winning 7-3 in the last 10. I don't know how. But John Morant, keep watching the Memphis Grizzlies. Do not give up hope. They're only looking here, 5 games back of the play-in. So it's not as far-fetched as they can make the playoffs. So everyone who was shutting the door on the Memphis Grizzlies, keep it open. Keep it open. Keep it open. But that will do it for this episode of – I just knocked that water bottle now. But that will do it for this episode of the Basketball Soapbox. Thank you guys for joining me. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. As always, thank you. Thank you for so much support on the channel. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, thank you.